Good afternoon and welcome to our September Headliners Luncheon. My name is Tara Polton. We're going to adjust that mic. I think we're a little too loud. Good afternoon. That's a little better. I don't hear feedback. Hello, everybody. My name is Tara Polton. I'm the Vice President of Public Policy and Workforce Partnerships with the Manatee Chamber, and I am so thrilled to have you all here. We are also so very excited to have Rick Piccolo, President and Chief Executive Officer with the Sarasota Bradenton International Airport, joining us today. But first, I ask everybody to please silence your cell phones. And if you would please join me and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'd like to recognize our headline sponsors, Florida Power and Light, the Mosaic Company, and the Realtor Association of Sarasota and Manatee. Thank you, too, to our platinum investors whose companies are now on the screen. Brown & Sons Funeral Homes and Crematory, Carr, Riggs & Ingram, IMG Academy, Manatee County Government, Manatee Memorial Hospital, MCR Health and All Care Options, the Mosaic Company, NDC Construction, the Pittsburgh Pirates and Bradenton Marauders Baseball, Raymond James Wealth Management, Bruce Body, the Sarasota Bradenton International Airport, and South State Bank. Thank you all so very much for being here. So if you've flown into the Sarasota Bradenton International Airport lately, you already know just how popular that airport has become. The Manatee Chamber is proud of our long-standing relationship with the staff under Rick's leadership. Rick serves on our board, and as you saw from that last screen, they also serve as one of our platinum investors. It's a partnership that we continue to strengthen year after year, and it's one we value tremendously. SRQ had one of its busiest years in 2021, with more than 3 million passengers traveling through our region. That's both locally and visitors. The airport's growth has hundreds of millions of dollars of economic impact and tremendous job creation for the community. Now, in just a few minutes, Rick will be sharing what they have in store to manage that remarkable growth. But first, we're going to have the Lakewood Ranch Country Club serve our lunch. And then after that, Janelle Esposito, the Chamber's Vice Chair of Workforce and Community Development, as well as the President and Managing Shareholder of Esposito Law Group, will be back at the podium in just a few minutes to begin our program and to formally introduce our speakers. And as I'm looking straight ahead, I do see that one of our elected officials have joined us. County Commissioner Satcher, thank you so much for being here. All right, lunch is now served.
My name is Janelle Esposito, and I truly have the pleasure of introducing Rick Piccolo today, President and CEO of the Sarasota Bradenton International Airport. Rick has more than 49 years of experience in the aviation industry and has been with SRQ since 1995. He began his career serving as a janitor at the Buffalo International Airport. After earning a bachelor's degree in business administration, he worked his way up, holding various airport positions over the years, including building superintendent, property manager, and assistant director of operations. Prior to joining SRQ, he served as the assistant airport director at the St. Pete Clearwater International Airport. Rick has had and continues to have an incredible impact on the aviation industry as a whole. He's served as president of the Florida Airports Council, chairman of the Airports Council International for North America, and chairman of the board of directors of the Airports Council International. In 2005, the Florida Department of Transportation selected Rick as the 2005 Aviation Professional of the Year, and the Federal Aviation Administration also chose him as the 2005 Airport Manager of the Year. In October of 2009, he was named by Airport Revenue News as the winner of the Small Airport CEO of the Year. Rick has also been an asset to our community locally through his service on local boards and engaging in area organizations such as the Board of Trustees, the University of South Florida, Sarasota Manatee, the Manatee Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors, and the Bradenton Area EDC Board of Directors, just to name a few. He's an impressive speaker today, and we look forward to his update on how the aviation industry is impacting our economy and what the future holds. Welcome you.
Certainly set a very high bar for me there. I'm really pleased to be here, and I always enjoy speaking to the Chamber and working with the Chamber. Had a great partnership with them. I always like to start out by telling a story about people that use the airport, and then after that, I'm going to go through a bunch of slides that you'll see and talk about what's going on at the airport. After a while, you may say, okay, enough of the slides. Can we please go home? But I like to talk about, first, there was this Minneapolis couple, and especially as winter's approaching now, that wanted to come to Florida after a very cold winter and thaw out a little, where they had had their honeymoon 20 years prior. But due to their work schedules, the husband was going to leave on a Thursday, the wife's going to follow him on a Friday. So he flew into SRQ, he went over to the hotel, and so he decided that he was going to send a little email to his wife, but he wasn't paying close attention, as many of us do, and he didn't put the right address in, left out one letter, and so when he hit the send button, it ended up at a widower in Houston who had just come back from her husband's funeral. And so the widow was going to her computer because she figured she'd get some more emails of condolences and such. And her son was with her, and the son was in the other room, and he heard her scream. He ran into the room. She was laying on the floor. She had fainted, and he looked at the message on the screen, and it said, "To my loving wife. Subject, I've arrived." I know you're surprised to hear from me, but they have computers here now, and they allow you to send emails to your loved ones. I've just arrived and been checked in. I see everything's been arranged for your arrival tomorrow. Looking forward to seeing you. Hope your journey is as uneventful as mine was. P.S. Sure is frickin' hot down here. I should quit now. All right, we're going to talk about the airport now. So let me get started with my presentation. And I always like to start with explain a little bit of what is the Sarasota Manatee Airport Authority. It is a quasi-governmental corporation. It's a special district created by the state legislature. It has a 6-member board of directors, 3 from Manatee County, 3 from Sarasota County. No elected officials are permitted under the law to be on there. They all must be, if an elected official tries to go on the board, they actually have to resign their office. They are all usually prominent business people in the community, and they understand the entrepreneurial nature of the airport. And I think that's a very important theme for you to understand as I go through my remarks. The airport has absolutely no taxing power. We are the closest thing to private industry you'll find in government. Because we survive and we make our $35 million a year operating budget and spend about $10 million a year on capital programs out of our budget. We have to make that through our business operations, the same as most of you in this room. So business is very important to us, and we're the closest thing you'll see to private industry. Now, we have a $2 billion a year annual economic impact on the community. With over 12,000 jobs in the community derived from our activities. There's over 50 businesses and 2,000 jobs on the airport itself. So here you have a government agency giving you over $2 billion worth of value a year, and we take zero out of your pocket as a taxpayer to get that done. The only time you spend any money and give the airport any money is when you buy a service at the airport that you will buy at any airport. So if you fly out of Tampa or you fly out of Punta Gorda or St. Pete, Fort Myers or Orlando, all fine airports, I've worked at 3 of them, then that economic opportunity and that economic impact goes to another community, not to our community. So I hope you keep that in mind when you start to make your choices of where to fly. So As I said, we do it at zero cost to you as a taxpayer with no disrespect to any elected official in the room. Name me another government agency that gives you $2 billion worth of value without taking $4 billion out of your pocket to do it with. So we're real proud of that. Now, we've had a lot of changes at the airport in the last few years, and I'm going to go through that a little bit. This was our service map in 2018. We had 6 airlines, 12 nonstop destinations. You could pretty much get anywhere in the world out of SRQ with just one stop, but you also could get pretty much anywhere in the United States, but with one stop, because most of our service was at hubs, and therefore you had to go through those hubs. You could get anywhere, but it wasn't as convenient as it is today. Today, we have 11 airlines, 53 nonstop destinations, and we continue to grow. And we're hopeful that we will have more airline service and more airlines to introduce in the near future. Now, this is a little composite that I think really shows the kind of growth we've experienced. See, in 2018, we were just under 1.4 million passengers, and that was our number somewhere in the 1.2 to 1.5 range for about a decade, from 2008 right through 2018. 2019, we became the fastest growing airport in the United States. We were growing at 43%. Allegiant had started service at the airport. Allegiant started with 3 cities and now is up to nearly 30 cities. So they've been very successful. 2020, as you can see, COVID hit, and while we went down, we actually did much better than most places. We lost about 30%. We were almost where our 2018 traffic was. So we were down about 33% for the year. Most airports were down about 70 to 95%, depending. Most foreign airports were down even worse than in the U.S. It was the fastest recovery was in the United States. And then, as you can see, in 2021, we did almost 3.2 million passengers. In the first 7 months of this year, we're at just under 2.4 million passengers. We'll likely hit somewhere in the neighborhood of 3.6 to 3.8 million passengers by the end of this calendar year. So we'll be up another 30% or so and starting to bump up against the 4 million mark. So obviously that's all great. At the same time, this kind of growth is difficult to handle, and there's an awful lot of projects I'm going to show you. And I try to equate it to, you have to understand the airport is a piece of infrastructure. And therefore, we grew at 155% over pre-pandemic levels in 2021. Imagine the roadway traffic going up 155% in 1 year. I don't care how much money the state and federal government's willing to give you to build roads, you could not build them fast enough. And so we were trying to adjust as much as we could from both an operational standpoint and a facility standpoint to handle the growth as quickly as we could. The interesting thing, last year at the Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays, for those that were lucky enough to park on our ramp, it was the first time I'd seen parking on our aircraft ramp. We parked about 500 cars out there over the holiday period. We have 2,100 paved parking spaces. We were parking 4,500 cars a day during the holiday season. So here's some recently completed projects. One of the things that was interesting is when we started to see this growth, we had a fuel farm that had 90,000 gallons of capacity, and there were days when we were running out of fuel. Now, that's not a good thing for an airport to have happen. And so what ended up happening is a lot of days airlines had to tanker fuel in. That means that where they were originating, they had to add a lot more fuel to the plane so that they could get back home. The other thing it did is it added weight to the aircraft, which made it more expensive to operate. So we quickly put together a fuel farm project, and we've added 300,000 gallons of fuel capacity. So we're nearly 400,000 gallons of fuel capacity now. We can go about 3 days without a fuel delivery before we'd run out of fuel now. So we're in much better shape with that. We did some parking lot expansion. You'll see on this screen here, right at the bottom, we added about 150 spaces. And then this area here into the shade lot was a piece of grass. We added another couple hundred spaces, which, as I said, got us to about 2,100 paved spaces. We're going through a lot of design of parking spaces now. There are a number of temporary lots that are kind of grass and that type of thing that we'll have to utilize again this winter while we go through the permitting process, design process, and start to get those parking lots built. There'll be some more remote parking. We bought 6 shuttle buses last year, and this year we bought another 2, what we call co-buses, which you'll see a picture of later for some other remote parking we want to do for aircraft. We expanded our ramp an area so that we could park more aircraft remotely. We have 13 gates, and there was times when all the gates were full. and therefore some aircraft had to park remotely, and then they would move into the slot when one came open. And this is just another rendering of that. We also added some ramps that we could move around that are solar powered so that you could board the planes out on the ramp if necessary. We expanded our security checkpoint. It was 4 lanes. We added a 5th lane, and there's actually a 6th lane that's ready. We're waiting for TSA to approve acquisition of another machine from them, and we'll have 6 lanes at the security checkpoint. We also completed a wayfinding signage project. It was about $1 million project to put in a bunch of new wayfinding signage so that people could find their way around, cell phone lots, that type of thing, and where all this remote parking was. Now we have a bunch of added projects that are going on. In this slide, I know it's a little hard for some people to see, but all those areas that are in color are different remote parking areas that we're designing in here, here, and up in here. We're designing about 2,000 more remote parking spaces. Most of them will be grass this winter and hopefully be paved by next winter, going through the permitting process and then going through the acquisition process. So we'll invest about $10 million in the next 2 years just in surface parking. Now, you may ask, why are you building surface parking? Why don't you just go vertical in front of the terminal and build a parking garage? As I said, the problem is we need every parking space we can get, and if we close the parking area in front of the terminal, we lose about 1,000 spaces, and you'll be parking on University Boulevard then, because we'll have no place to put you. So first we have to build all these remote lots, move you out of there so that when we build the vertical lot, we'll have enough spaces to handle you, and then go through that. So those are some things that we look to the future that we'll have to do. At the end of the baggage wing, there'll be a new ground transportation center. That whole area along the edges of it will be covered so that you won't be out in the rain like you are now. It'll handle all the TNCs, transportation network companies like Uber and Lyft. It'll have the shuttles, the limousines, taxis, both MCAT and SCAT, and it'll also have a facility there for the drivers so that they can get out of the heat, vending machines, toilets, that type of thing, so that we'll have more facilities for them. That is about an $8 million project that's in about 60% design right now. This is a consolidated car rental facility. When you first come into the airport, you see all those areas where all those cars are parked for the rental cars. We're going to consolidate it into one facility so that all 3 major companies will have areas where they can service cars, fuel the cars, store the cars, and then all those other areas that are going to come back to us, we're going through a rezoning process with the city of Sarasota. Some of it will become more vertical parking, but some of it also will become more hotels, restaurants, office space, again bringing revenue to the airport and also providing more economic benefit to the community. I do like to emphasize right now that we're one of the few airports in this country that is debt-free. Tampa, which is a wonderful airport, I worked there 3 years, right now has about $1 billion on the books of debt. So right now we're real pleased that we're able to stay debt-free. This is a $32 million project, and that will be funded completely by the car rental companies. New cell phone lot is due to open in the next year. We're waiting for the final permits on that and should break ground within the next month. That is just south of the temporary one we built. The nice thing with this is it'll have restroom facilities, vending facilities. It'll have some display boards up there to tell you when your flight's on the ground. So we do want to improve that quite a bit. We had to build that other cell lot in about a month. Again, going through all these fantastic growth problems, we were trying to adjust as quickly as we can. That is a $3.5 million project, and that is already, as I said, designed. It's out under contract with a construction company, and we're just waiting for the final permit from the city of Sarasota. We're going to expand our employee lot and the west apron so we can park more aircraft there and park more employees. Our existing lot used to be about half empty. Now we park about 500 employee cars a day. So as I said, we generate a lot of employment for the community, and we have to accommodate that employee parking needs as well. That project is about $5 million. We're also expanding the east commercial apron. This area here is where the new terminal will go. So this is underway right now. The next time you come out to the airport, if you look out the window, you're going to see a lot of work going on out there. And that project's underway. That is a $5 million expansion of the terminal apron. There's a new observation area, and I want to thank Elliott and Manatee County because we're working with them on a new observation area along 15th Street. Many of you might have sat there on the gravel there across from the old Honeywell building and where Sun State Trucking and all that is. It's about a $750,000 project. We're actually under $1 million on a project. And it's going to have seating, it's going to have cover so that you can get out of the sun, parking areas, playground areas. It'll have a bunch of pictures, historical pictures of the airport, and it'll have a speaker system so you can listen to the tower while you sit there and watch the aircraft take off. And we're kind of excited about that because it's a nice community project. This is a consolidated baggage system. Right now when you go to the airport, there's area A, B, and C. They're independent of each other. B and C can be connected when we have a breakdown, but it overloads whatever system it is. So we're doing a new consolidated baggage system. You can see on the far right over here, right now we have 3 machines that are independent of each other. Once we gang those together with this system, then when one machine breaks down, we don't have to move all the bags to another area by hand. Right now we have 20 employees that work doing nothing but standing next to baggage machines waiting for them to break down. It's a terrible waste of operational money, but it's the only way for us to continue to function while we go through this tremendous growth. This is a $42 million project. It starts in this month. A bunch of the crew are out there today. And we're very pleased with this project being able to move forward. We received a $25 million grant from TSA, and we're funding half of it with the state on the remaining $17 million. This is going to be the ground level boarding terminal at the airport. To get you a little orientation here, right here is the end of ticketing. So all this is going to be new. It'll have 5 gates. It's ground-based boarding, so that we'll not have jet bridges, and a couple reasons for that. One, we want to get it put up as fast as we can, and if you go to second-level loading and jet bridges, it adds about $40 million. This is an $80 million project. It adds about $40 million to the cost, adds another year to the construction, so we don't have time or the money to throw in an extra $40 million. We expect to have this open by the end of 2024. We're also, for those that have used the airport a lot, we've had a lot of escalator problems because they were never designed to take 4 million people through them, and they're 11 years old. So I'm happy to say the board approved the first piece of our construction project for the terminal this past month, and we'll be putting in double escalators up and down, brand new, that should start. The problem for us is there's a 7-month lead time on getting the supply, so about next summer sometime we should start seeing that project actually get done at the terminal. This is a look at what the terminal looked like from the ground-based loading terminal from the ramp side. You can see that big atrium area, and I'm going to show you some other pictures of it that I think you'll find impressive. In that atrium area is where all the concessions will be, food and beverage, coffee, that type of thing. And then you'll go into the hold room areas, and you'll see a number of pictures on that. This will be the entrance to the security checkpoint. There'll be 4 lanes there. So you'll have 4 lanes there, you'll have 6 at the other, so we'll have a total of 10 security lanes at the airport. This gives you another look at the concessions area and the atrium. It should be quite impressive and look nice. One of the things we wanted to do while being a ground-based terminal is make sure that it still had the level of beauty and the level of ambiance that we like to present at the airport. When we did our entrance program a few years ago and we built the entry to the airport, we wanted to give you that country club entrance or resort feel, and we want to continue that throughout the terminal. So this will be the hold room areas and where people will then leave that atrium area, turn right, and go to their gates, and then they'll ground board from there. This is a little animation that will show you what it's like when you go to the terminal, but there's no music to it. Pull in, drop off. You're going to go through security. Purchase your double latte frappuccino.
Was that real time going through security?
Yeah. It was a lot longer getting the frappuccino.
Right.
walk out to your aircraft. There'll be some portable ramps that I showed you in that one picture. And this will be a view from the other side. Now that gives you a look at what that will look like. Now, part of what our planning process was, though, that we want to make sure that this doesn't go to waste and that eventually we can couple it with the rest of the terminal. Part of what we're going to also do during this phase is we're doing a couple bump outs in Terminal B, in the main terminal, so that we can add more concession space and more hold room space there. So one of the problems we have right now is that end of the terminal is so overloaded that we don't have enough room for all our concessions, and in a lot of cases, the lines get too long at the concession area, and then we lose sales. And we're very business-oriented. I like to joke that we're kind of like the mob. We get a piece of the action of everything that happens at the airport. When you rent a car, we get 10% of the gross. When you buy a drink, we get 15% of that. When you buy a Coke, when you buy a sandwich, when you buy a T-shirt, when you buy a newspaper, we get a piece of everything, and that's how we fund the airport. So we don't like losing sales. We like sales. Business is always good for us then. So this is a rendering. We didn't want to make this go to waste, so this part here, you see this area here, that will be phase 2 of the construction. Now, not in this $80 million project, that's for the future. That'll add 3 more second-level gates with jet bridges. That's probably going to run somewhere in the $120 to $150 million range. That may be the day that the airport will be taking on debt, but it'll pay for our business operations. But we've been very cost competitive with other airports. To give you an example, Fort Myers Airport, a metric used by the airlines is called CPE, cost per enplanement. That's cost per boarded passenger. In Tampa, that cost is about $10 per passenger. So for every passenger they board, it's on average about $10 cost to the airlines in fees to the airport. In Fort Myers, it's about $8 per passenger. And in SRQ, it's $5 per passenger. So anybody that tells you we don't have as much service because of those other airports because we charge too much is absolutely wrong. Anyway, so this will be phase 2, and what it'll do is it'll join this ground-based, and you can see there's that atrium, with the second level, and then another atrium that'll be built here, which will expand concessions again. And that's a look at that second level where it's combined. The other thing that'll happen there is this is where the ground-based terminal is, and then we'll break through that wall, go to that second level, escalators, elevators, and bring all that together. We're also doing a bunch of development on our North Quad area. We have a number of new leases that have gone into effect. Shelter Aviation is going to be our third fixed base operator or general aviation provider. General aviation has grown tremendously at the airport. With all these people buying these homes that cost $2 million and $5 million, they also bring other things with them, like planes. So this area here is where Shelter is going to go. It's a $35 million private investment to build another FBO. We also have DJG SRQ hangar that's going to build out there. And so we have a number of entities that are going to build out there. And again, that will provide revenue to the airport, about $800,000 annually of rental income and fuel flowage fees to the airport. Again, more jobs, more economic development, but also more revenue and future financial stability for the airport. We're also building a new general aviation customs facility. It's 100% design. It's out on the street. That will be out in that North Quad area. And the reason for that, for those that don't know, we have a customs facility under the terminal. We can clear a wide-body jet there, 300 passenger peak hour under the terminal. And in the old days, when we had general aviation traffic coming internationally, they would clear at gate B8. Unfortunately, we need gate B8 all the time now with our airlines, so we're going to build this customs facility for general aviation aircraft. Last year, we did 650 international general aviation flights. So people don't realize just how much general aviation international traffic we have. We're also doing a new, that's the new Shelter rendering for the fixed-based operator. Here's a project we're pretty excited about. Manatee Technical College is going to build an A&P school out at the airport. We built these facilities here, a maintenance hangar, we redid an old Agape hangar, built this maintenance hangar that was just completed, and we did about $3 million worth of prep work and site plan work for MTC. MTC secured a $5.5 million grant in the last legislative session for their equipment for that A&P school, and now they're going through their final environmentals, and then once that's done, the school board is going to invest $7 to $8 million in building that facility there, that classroom and hangar space, so they can teach kids. The A&P school allows kids to go and get a job at a average starting salary of about $65,000. The nice thing about this is for those kids that don't want to go to college, this is good technical training. They come out with their mechanics license for aviation. It takes about 2 years, and it gives them a worldwide opportunity. Boeing estimates there will be a need for 700,000 aviation mechanics over the next 2 decades worldwide. So these kids will have, from our community, will have the opportunity to go to that and have a worldwide opportunity. The other good thing about it is working with MTC, it's restricted how much money they can charge for tuition because they're a state college, and therefore our kids will be able to go to these schools at a lot less expense than going to some of the private schools that are surrounding us in other counties. And it's kind of an immersion program we started. For those that don't know, we also have been working with Team Success. It's a charter school in Manatee County. It's an A-rated charter school. It is 83% minority, 97% economically disadvantaged. And they're building a K-12 school on our land across the street on 15th Street. So between Team Success and the A&P school, the only other piece we need is obviously university, and we're working with the University of South Florida on getting an aerospace engineering program that would be taught in that MTC facility because it would have classroom space. So you would have children here in this community from K through 12 through technical or university that could get all their schooling out here with never leaving the airport's property, and we're really pretty proud of that and hopeful that all that will come off. Thank you. We really are excited about that. We've also made a lot of operational changes. We've increased our police force quite a bit. And one of the unfortunate things that's happened, especially during the COVID areas with the masks and all that, we've had a lot more calls for police interaction. We actually had 33 arrests at the airport this past year, including 4 felonies. We have had 4 assault of officers, taking people off planes. So it's part of the ugly side of it, but we've increased our police force and made a lot of operational changes to make things better. We have 250 cameras in the airport, 16 digital recorders going, so please behave yourself, or you'll be on YouTube the very next day, I promise you. We've also added a lot of operational capacity to our fire department. They now can, we used to have to depend on the FBOs to come out and remove those aircraft. Now when we have these small incidents, our fire department and our facilities department have all the equipment they need, and they can move this stuff off the runway very quickly. This is the gate software that we have at the airport, and that allows us to utilize the gates to its maximum capacity. The way our agreements work with our airlines, if you're a signatory carrier, which means you've signed a long-term lease, you get preferential gate use. But it's preferential, it's not exclusive. So when you're not at your gate or don't need that gate, we use it for the other airlines, which allows us to maximize the amount of utilization of our gates. And this was about a $40,000 software program we bought a couple years ago, just in time for all this growth. This is the co-buses I was talking about. You can see that picture. We are planning for this year, given the growth, that if we have to have remote gates, for those that have flown through, say, LAX, and you get on a bus and you go out to the plane that's parked remotely, well, this will be along the same lines. Where our customs facility is near Gate B8, we actually have been reforming that so that we have some equipment down there to check people through and put seats in there and that type of thing. People will go down there, board that co-bus, which is specially designed for people with luggage, and we'll take them out to that remote stand and load them onto the aircraft. So that gives us, we have 5 of those spaces for this year, so we go from 13 gates to 18 gates without having to build more infrastructure in the short term. It's not perfect, but that bus ride's only about 30 seconds. The bus ride in LAX is about 30 minutes. So we think we've improved on it quite a bit. But that is all the operational planning that we keep going through, just like we did with the parking out on the ramp, we put that together very quickly in other areas. This is the kind of struggle we've had in trying to keep up with the growth while building over the long term. We increased our Wi-Fi by about 90%, and now have a much more robust Wi-Fi so that you can utilize it. We have what's called a DAS system. Now, I didn't know what a DAS system was till my IT people who came to me, but that distributed antenna system is actually a cellular phone lot. And we now have our own cellular tower inside the terminal, and therefore you can have better connections. Right now, AT&T is on it. Both T-Mobile and Verizon are talking with our provider. And again, we get a piece of the action. And so with that, I thank you for the invitation. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you all very much. Oh, you're easy. Yes.
So what are your projections? I mean, we see where we are 7 months into the year. Do you have a sense for where you will end the year, and then what's next year?
Yeah, well, we think we'll end the year probably in the 3.7 to 3.8 million range. So we'll be up about 600,000 passengers over last year. Part of what slowed some of it down right now is pilot shortages and fuel inflation, that type of thing. But I think it's temporary. And the demand continues to grow in the area just as we see more and more people come here. I think next year it's certainly within the realm of possibility that we'll break 4 million. And we believe with the ground-based terminal that we can handle somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 5.5 million passengers comfortably. It's getting the parking then in line as fast as we can. And then once the need is there for phase 2, that other connector, that can probably get us to 7 or 8 million. And then on the other side, we could build another wing sometime in the future, but I will be retired.
The biggest ask of us is to Uber to the airport.
Yeah, well, you can Uber. We get a piece of that too, so. Yes, ma'am.
So for your time at the airport, the capacity is like, it's just growing by leaps and bounds. What's the most intimidating aspect of this, and what's the most rewarding?
I'd say there's a couple things that are very intimidating. One is just how fast can you get this stuff built, and can you do it cost effectively? We've been very good at getting grants and managing our money. We have $56 million in the bank. We were very successful with the Florida legislature this year and secured another, thank you, Representative Buchanan and Senator Gruters and the rest of our local delegation. We had a $21.5 million legislative appropriation towards that terminal, the terminal expansion. FDOT added another $12 million towards that baggage system. So we've been very successful there. We got a $10 million grant from FAA out of that new bipartisan infrastructure law. So we've been very good at that, and we think we have about $200 million worth of work here that we think we can do without having to borrow any money. So it's managing that and making sure we can get that done without having to borrow money and stay as cost effective as we are. I'd say the other thing that's most intimidating is just what has always been intimidating for me, and one that's always a concern, is the security aspects of our business and making sure, we changed a few years ago. We have what's called, we have a tactical officer that's on duty all the time with a long rifle. Now, you'll see him walking around the terminal, and that is because of the active shooter stuff that goes on. And it shows the sooner you interact with that shooter with the same level of firepower, the sooner you can bring it to a conclusion. So we always have that ready with other long rifles that are strategically placed throughout the terminal and lockers that other officers can go and get. So that's one issue. We have all the camera systems. We have a microphone system in the ceiling that will alert we have a 24/7 operations center and communication center that will alert to gunfire and immediately bring the cameras into focus and set off an alert so that we can dispatch our officers right away. We have a virtual fence around the main parking lot that you don't know, but if someone walks into that parking lot at 3 o'clock in the morning from the perimeter, it will alarm in that same operations center, and we dispatch an officer because we want people to be safe, especially, and I don't mean to sound sexist or anything, but if we have a female passenger by herself in the long-term lot way in the back because we're so full at 5 o'clock in the morning for an early morning flight, we don't want that person to be in harm's way. So that's the other aspect that we're always looking at is our security levels. Yes, sir.
A few weeks ago, female employee at, I don't even remember the airport, but she was working the baggage conveyor and her hair was caught and she lost her life. And I wondered, was that she wasn't going according to protocol or safety precautions, or how does that kind of?
I would imagine she didn't go according to safety protocols. I don't know the case itself, and it is something that one of the reasons behind this system, as I said, we have about 20 people that do nothing but stand by the baggage system, wait for it to break. And it does, because it's got all these moving parts, it can get a little dangerous at times. With this automated system, we eliminate a lot of that. So it is something that you have to be careful, and safety is always an issue that we take a hard look at. I'm happy to say that our worker comp, we were cited by the state this year because our worker comp rates were the best improvement in accidents in the state for airports. So, yes.
What's the process for adding new routes to the airport? Is it all market driven, or do you guys seek out new routes?
It's both. We seek out new routes. We do a lot of data analysis. Elliot and Virginia over in Sarasota are very helpful in giving us data on where visitors are coming from. We do data analysis. We visit airlines a lot. We have one person dedicated to doing that. And I don't mean to keep pointing out Elliot, but he accompanies us on a lot of these trips and has been very helpful. So we solicited a lot. We give them data, and then other times, I mean, they come to us and say, we've looked at this data, we'd like to start service from this city to this city, we think it's good. Now, we have I think the best incentive program in the country. Any airline, whether it's an existing airline or new airline, that adds a new route, gets to operate that route free for 2 years. We don't charge them rent, we don't charge them landing fees, it's free. And in partnership with both Bradenton CVB and the Sarasota CVB, we provide hundreds of thousands of dollars of marketing money so that it's successful. And it's a good investment because at the end of the day, if the route isn't successful, pretty soon they don't look at new routes and it gets much more difficult to get routes. And I think Allegiant's a great example. They started 29 cities, and they're known for if this route doesn't work pretty quickly, we're going to pull it out. We've never lost a route from them. Southwest, when they came in about a year and a half ago, started with 1 gate in 8 cities, and now are up to 3 gates in 19 cities. And this summer, I think they'll hit 23. So the marketing money, once it's established after the 2 years, now they're paying retail to us. Remember, we get a piece of the action. And the marketing money has made it successful. That runs out. Now that route is established and it's doing well. And it brings all this economic opportunity and activity to the community, because once those people come in, they're not staying right at the airport. They're going to hotels, restaurants, gas stations, shopping malls, beaches, all that stuff that bring revenue, not just to the businesses, but to the government as well, and sales tax and gas tax and all those things. So we provide a tremendous benefit for the entire community. Yes, sir.
Rick, there's been a lot of things in the news about flight delays and cancellations. What's the situation at SRQ, and maybe your thoughts in general about what's going on?
We've had some cancellations this summer, more pre-canceled than the day of the flight. We haven't had a lot of bad days where everything gets canceled. Part of it is the pilot shortage, and in defense of the airlines. When COVID hit, everyone thought, myself included, that, boy, this is going to last 3 or 4 years the way things are going. And so they offered a lot of early outs to their pilots, which were their highest priced employees, to try and get them to take early retirement packages. And they were very successful in it. Unfortunately, they were very successful in it, and things recovered much faster. So you have that issue of pilot fatigue, because a lot of pilots were flying a lot of extra hours, and they're starting to resist that. The second issue with pilots is that after the Colgan crash in Buffalo about 10 years ago, Congress doubled the flight hours required to get in a commercial airliner. So it went from 750 hours to 1,500. So now your flow of pilots is less, because it takes a lot more time to get your license. In addition, it takes a lot more money, because now you got to go to school for an extra, you got to double your school time. I think they estimate it costs about $250,000 to get your commercial pilot's license. So that's an issue. Third, you have military. Well, we used to have a much bigger military, but also now a lot of that war flying is done by drone. So you can't fly a plane by drone. Now, I think there could come a day where you'll be flying your commercial airline by drone, but it's not here today. So you have those issues. Then on the ground, you have the same issues that lots of businesses are facing of trying to get workers. And there's a shortage of workers. So we had times at the airport where aircraft would be on the ground. The workers that were working 2 or 3 aircraft, they didn't have any more, so that aircraft had to sit and wait, not because we didn't have a gate. We had gate software. Hey, we have 5 gates open. You can use any one of them. Didn't have anyone to unload the plane or even bring it in. So all those worker problems that you see throughout the country are also affecting the airports. You have some air traffic control issues, especially into Florida, because Jacksonville Center controls everything coming into Florida. I think there's three gateways into it, but one has a lot of military airspace out in the Gulf. So when you have military doing some practices out there for MacDill and the naval base in Pensacola, that gets closed off. And then if you have a bad storm up in the north, it starts slowing things down and it all just backs up. So all that stuff has an effect. We haven't seen a great effect at our place, but we have seen some. Yes, Commissioner.
When it comes to inflation, you feel like you guys are set up with a buffer and you're okay? Or is that a threat to your business?
I think it's a threat in the sense that, as I said earlier, one of the things that I get concerned about is as we look at all these projects, what's the final numbers going to come in at? And can we maintain all these projects, or do we have to cut something back? And then we've seen, obviously, wage inflation. Now, the good thing for us, we've been able to handle that because our business has grown so much that the revenues are really coming in really robust. And we've built up a pretty good reserve. But it is an issue that we have a concern with, but I wouldn't say it's an alarmist issue for us yet. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
What are the top 3, I guess, currently locations you're seeing travelers in the area?
I think, and Elliot can probably do better on this than me, I think it's New York is probably our #1 area.
New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, Washington, Baltimore. This opportunity with the growth has really allowed us to build the Midwest and mainly Texas, Dallas, Houston, and Austin. That's where we're seeing diversity coming into the region.
Yeah, we're starting to get, it used to be that Atlanta was your most western city to go to, and now we have service to Denver and Houston and Dallas and Austin, so we're seeing a lot more lift westbound. Yes, sir.
In terms of the growth that is being referenced as far as who you're trying to attract or go after, are you looking more at the regional carriers, or are you looking to bring more legacy carriers in?
Well, there's really not many carriers left. We have every carrier but Spirit as far as domestic. Well, we don't have Alaska and Hawaiian Airlines, but as far as domestic carriers of size, Spirit's the only airline we don't have serving us now. And if the JetBlue Spirit merger goes through, then we do have them. So, so it's not so much that, it's trying to get all these carriers that we have to add more destinations. And we're also doing a lot of work trying to get more international. We're working very hard to try and get both more Canadian service, as well as see what we can get from across the pond, and working hard at that. And I think that eventually will come as well.
Does the lack of workforce housing, how is that affecting you? And has the airport ever considered building workforce housing for their...
The workforce housing issue is an issue for the airport, just like it is for most businesses here. It hasn't been a huge, what's affected is that our wage rates have gone up. We pay our part-timers like $16 an hour to start. So it's driven up our wage rates to try and get people. I think it does have an effect, as it does in the whole community. It's funny you ask that question, because as we look at rezoning that area where all the car rentals are, one of the things we're talking about is, do we build some sort of workforce housing there so that people that work on the airport have some way to work here? And that is an issue we're looking at.
Tara, I could just make a comment. It's really important. As you all just saw, Rick is a really humble guy. For those of you who don't know, about 2 months ago, the Department of Transportation named SRQ as the #1 commercial airport in the state of Florida. That's something to be proud of.
Thanks, Dad.
Rick,
Thank you.
thank you very much. Excellent presentation. Elliot, thank you so much for mentioning that with DOT. That was something that I was going to bring up as well. Since you already took my thunder, I'm going to go off script a little bit. There's a birthday in the room. Does anyone else having a birthday or just one person? I just wanted to say happy birthday to Janelle Esposito, our speaker. Thank you. I hope you have a wonderful day. And Janelle and I met in Leadership Manatee. So for any Leadership Manatee alum in the room, you make excellent relationships. And goodness, that was probably 15 years ago. Okay, thank you so much to our sponsors, FP&L, Mosaic, and the Realtor Association of Sarasota and Manatee. Just wanted to mention some of our upcoming events. In October, we will get some key insights on the general election with Dr. Susan McManus. For those of you that may not know Dr. McManus, she recently retired from USF. I actually had her 25 years ago. Never did I know then that I would have a career in public policy, and I don't think she thought I'd ever have a career in public policy either. I didn't get an A in the class. She was a really tough teacher, but she is phenomenal. So please come, bring your questions. We are very excited to have her. We'll be at Pier 22 next month. And then some other upcoming events. Biscuits and benefits, it's always great. Even if your business has been a chamber member for a long time, but maybe you're new, come join us on September 20th. We have our Business and Education Awards Breakfast coming up on October 7th. That we do with the school district. We'll be at the Parish Community High School. And then our financial literacy program that we do with all of our high school seniors that kicks off October 10th. And that is it, everybody. Thank you all so very much for being here, and we look forward to seeing you next month.